Hello everyone. Recently, this channel hit 1,000 subscribers, which I'm very happy about. And in this video, I want to thank you all with some crazy computer games. So over this past year, this pretty much whole 2024, I've been running constantly chess engine tournament games on my computer. So here we go. This is what one of these tournaments looks like. It's basically Stockfish against many of the top engines, and usually I filter out all the draws and go through every single win one by one, and I try to pick out some of the craziest games. So here are two of the most brilliant games this year so far. The first one is going to be the shortest game, shortest checkmate of them all. So we have Stockfish here against Halogen 11. This game was played on February 2nd. It was a 2+4 game on my computer, which has 4 CPUs. Let's begin. Now, I do have an opening book, which is different from how TCC and the other websites do it, like the chess.com, because they usually start openings with a high advantage for white. My opening book, though, starts off, it's based on the Lichess games, and it's basically what most people play, so I get to see openings that are actually played and common, and I get to learn from that. So this is why I run the games myself. So this is the opening position after the book in this game. And let's see how this continued. So black goes e6, normal development. We have, this is the Jobava London. So here Stockfish transfers his knight to the king side, planning some big attack, solidifying the center, transferring the knight, and putting the knight in the center. All right, takes. And now here black decides to castle. And now Stockfish begins his attack. So we have knight h5, trying to trade off defenders of the king. And since every piece is pointing towards it, we have 4 pieces here. We have about 3, maybe 4 defenders. So it might be okay now, but all these squares are going to be starting to look very weak. We have knight e8, defending this pawn as well. Queen to g4, putting pressure on the pawn. We have g6. And now black doesn't have any threats, so Stockfish goes with h4. And the plan is you move the knight, and now the queen's attacked, so we have to move it. Stockfish goes here, which is crazy because it's right in a discovery, straight into a discovery from the knight. But if you play knight e4, for example, Stockfish will play queen h6, and after bishop f6 and h5, it's very, very difficult to defend. White is going to be winning. So black takes, white plays h5, and now there's another piece coming in, this rook, and black's forces will be overwhelmed. So c takes b2. Now it's threatening to make a queen with check, so Stockfish takes a move to defend against that. Black gives a check, Stockfish moves the king out of the way. And now black decides to take on h5. And here's the key moment of the game. Pause the video if you want to try to find the next move. Alright, Stockfish plays the move queen takes h5, sacrificing the queen, because if you take it, there will be a forceful bishop takes h7, rook takes h5, knight guards g6, and after king g8, rook h8 is made. Now after this, there's not much black can do. The game continued with queen to1 check, because the engines are programmed to try to delay the checkmate as much as possible. But we have a queen sack to finish off the game in the same checkmate that I showed you before. So this is a total of 24 moves to checkmate, and this is very crazy because Halogen is still a 3400 plus rated engine, which is trying to find very good moves and is very, very tough, and is trying to at least delay checkmate as much as possible, and still the shortest game was 24 moves. Alright, let's move on to the next game. We have Stockfish playing black against Rebel 16.2. This is the number 13 engine in my list, or in my list at that time. All right, let's go through the opening. E4, C5. Okay, so we have E5 here instead of the usual D4 trying to transpose into like a normal Sicilian, like a Najdorf. So we have E5, takes, and A6. And this is where my opening book ended. So this is when the engines start to make their own moves. White plays A4, stopping any B5 ideas. Black plays bishop to E6, developing the bishop, maybe preventing bishop C4 and defending this. A little bit of a weird move though, hard to understand. White plays A5, clamping this pawn structure. Black plays queen to D6, attacking this knight from the center. Now it's very hard to support. D4 is not available, so black plays, or white plays knight F3. Black develops. Now white decides to fianchetto the bishop, and black starts the assault with H5. Typical engine play, bringing in the rook into the attack with a H pawn. Bishop G2, H4. Now this is a pawn sack, the knight can take it, but the idea here is queen to E5 check. Now white plays knight to E2, which it is the best move, but what's wrong with queen E2? You want a pawn, maybe you want to trade queens. Well, black will trade queens, and now it doesn't matter which way you take. Let's say knight takes. Black will play knight to B4, threatening a fork, which is very, very hard to defend. And after king D1 defending the pawn, there's going to be knight to G4, threatening the other fork. And it's very hard to defend this one. You have to play rook F1, and after knight takes H2, black wins the pawn back at least and is in a superior position. Now king takes E2 is not that much better, because after knight D4 again forks the king and the pawn, and after king to D1 this time is even worse because G5 attacks the knight, and if you try knight to F3, bishop G4 simply will win the piece. So that's why knight E2 was played. Now black plays bishop to D5, trading off some of the defenders of the key squares around the king. White plays knight to F3 to try to keep the bishop and attack the black queen. Now black here plays an interesting move. You can pause the video to see if you can find it. Just think about what you would play. There's no tactic here, just you might want to try to find what black would play. Okay, so in this position, Stockfish played queen to E4, once again getting into the discovered attack, but there's no good one, because if you move your knight in most places, you just lose the bishop. Okay, so white decides to castle. Now, once again, castling into the attack. Now, white could have tried something like D3 to kick the queen off, but what black had in mind, which is very crazy, you can try to pause the video now as well to see if you can find the next move. What black would have played here is queen takes F3, a queen sacrifice, and after bishop takes, threatening the rook, and if you move the rook, knight D4 will win a third piece, and black will be just completely dominating. So white castles here. Knight D4, threatening to win a third piece, and the queen, because of the attack from the bishop. So rook E1 forced, and now this is another key moment. If you want to test and pause yourself, what you would do here. Now the move here is rook to H3, stopping this pawn from playing pawn to H4 and stopping the attack. And everything here is mostly stuck, so white can try to play C3 to unpin the pieces. But after knight to G4, threatening rook takes H2, and then rook H1 checkmate. So white plays queen A4 check, and after knight to C6, queen to F4 attacks the bishop. And after knight takes H2, defending the bishop, and rook A4, for example, and E6, apparently black is doing it slightly better. So that's what could have happened if D3. Crazy line, but white decides to castle instead. Okay, Stockfish continues with knight to E5, threatening this knight, and if you take it, then this will be checkmate. And I guess you can move it as well, but I'm sure there would be other attacking moves. But in any case, white plays rook to a3, just simply defending this knight. And here black plays another crazy move, which you can still pause the video and try to figure out. Oh yeah, by the way, I just want to say, just want to go back after knight to h4. There is this, I just realized, there is knight f3 and rook takes h2, so that would have been pretty cool actually. So we have rook to a3 and rook takes h2, just simply sacrificing the rook. Now if knight takes, again there's this checkmate, so white plays king takes, and now knight f to g4 check, and here white plays king to h1. Now if king to g1, there would have been knight takes f3 check, and if bishop takes, then queen to h7, and there's no way to stop checkmate on h2 or h1. So rook takes, and now again rook, queen to h7, and now you do have rook to e1, but after queen h2, king f1, and bishop takes f3, you can't take it because of checkmate here. Black is threatening checkmate, and there's basically no way to defend it except for knight f4, which is bad for many reasons. So king g1 doesn't work because of trades, and queen h7 just works out. So white plays king to h1, and now the difference is that after knight takes, now again if you recapture, there's going to be queen to h7, so white plays knight to g1. That's why white went to h1, not to block the square on g1. Okay, queen to h7, and now knight to h3 does stop the checkmates, and there's actually no good checkmate sacrifices here. But once again, black plays a cool move here. You can pause the video to test yourself once again. Okay, the move the black plays here is knight to e1, threatening this bishop, and also pinning this bishop so that queen takes h3 is available. So if you take this knight, then queen takes h3 will be checkmate. Now white does have a defensive move f3, stops the pin, defends the bishop, and the knight is also defended. And now black has a knight under attack and plays knight takes c2, defended by the queen, attacking the rook, rook to c3, and now knight back to d4 in the center. Rook takes c5 is played, attacking the bishop, bishop b3, queen e1, now e6, attacking the rook, and finally developing this bishop possibly. Rook c3, bishop to d5, now continuing this pin, so now if you take the knight, then you pin your bishop. King to g1, unpinning this knight, and now possibly threatening f takes g4, so knight f6, knight back, knight f4, bishop d6, finally developing this bishop on the 26th move. Now white takes here. Now if you don't take here, if you play a move like d3, black will play king to d7 looking for rook to h8, and if king to f2, there will be tactics like bishop takes f3, and then queen h2, and if you block, there's knight to g4 checkmate, and if you play knight here, there's going to be bishop takes g3. So there's a lot of things happening here. So white does decide to take that. Now knight takes, attacks the rook, and f4 is played. Now if you move this rook, if you play a move like rook c4, there's going to be another tactic, bishop takes g3, attacking the queen and threatening checkmate. And if you take it, there's going to be knight to e2, forking the king and queen. So that's why f4 was played, to stop the bishop g3 idea. Takes, knight to c2 once again, coming inside the white's position, attacking the queen. And after queen to e4, we have bishop c5, and the rook basically has to block. Okay, queen to h5, bishop f3, queen h3, and now black does leave the knight hanging, and after a check, white does take it. But the cool thing is that white's position is kind of stuck. King is has nowhere to go, this rook has nowhere to go, and this bishop is not going to be doing much for much longer. Now if you black plays rook to d8. Now if you take this pawn, white will play king to f1 and sort of untangle. It's not might be good in some cases, but you don't have to do it till later. So rook d8, f5, trying to do something, but black plays e5. Okay, f6, g6, not even taking this pawn, just keeping the lock on the position. b3, king to g8. You don't need to do anything. Bishop to a7, just keeping the pin on the position. And notice the white is up a bishop in this case. And if you take it, well, if you take it, it'll be 2 bishops for a rook, which is not that good, but still, black is the one making the threats here. Now rook takes f6 would be a big threat. So white plays b5, threatening b6, so you have to take it. And now bishop to f4, there's not much to do. Like if bishop g5, now queen takes g3, and for example, and this bishop might be hanging too. So there's not much for white to do. So bishop f4, defending against queen takes g3 finally, but takes, and queen g3 is finally played. And we have this move rook to d1 check, because if you take it, this will be straight up checkmate. So king e2. And now if you take this, then he can take the rook, and it's not so clear still. So black plays rook to a1. Now we are threatening a full rook. So queen d2 is played. Now you could take it, but actually, yeah, he does take it. And after queen to f1, it's pretty much the end of the game. There's not much white can do. If king c2, queen b1 is checkmate. And the only other move is queen e2, and after rook to d1, there's no way to save the queen. And after a couple more moves, a couple checks, we do get to a checkmate. Alright, I hope you enjoyed these games, and I'll be sure to keep my computer running, finding more games, and I'll make more videos about them. And also, once again, thanks for the 1,000 subscribers.